Hello class, are we ready for one last week of AP Lang Review? We are 1 week away from your exam date, May 20th. Be ready for that. And how you get ready for that is by doing this. All right, join us for this review today. Today I'm going to be going over this PowerPoint and slides of reminders, refocusing, summing up everything that you need to know for the exam essay. Right? You're writing one exam essay, that rhetorical analysis. You've learned a lot this year, a lot more than just one essay, but this is the one way that you're going to show what you've learned, and I think you could exhibit that awesomely. Before we look into that review, let's take a look back at most recently you wrote your own essay, and hopefully you timed it right and you managed your time. That's outside of what I could help you with. Yes, I can also. We'll get into that. But your peer editing and my feedback. By now you should have looked at what your classmates have advised and comments that they've given you. Please take those comments. I did read what you wrote for each other, and for the most part I agree with what people are telling you. So there's a lot of commenting that I did not need to make because somebody else made a valid point. So please pay attention to that. Now, if you know wholeheartedly that you disagree with this piece of advice, then hey, take it just as that, advice. But please consider it all and look at my feedback also, where I think if you look at that most recent essay, this is the one Claire Booth Luce's piece on her speech on women in wartime. So your analysis of that one will be a good example of where you're at, and for exam day you're going to be a little bit better because of all this feedback. Now, in general terms, what I would say, two things I want to focus on that affected several of you students, so I think worthy of my commenting here, is the understanding that the point of this essay, this assignment, rhetorical analysis, is to, shocker here, analyze the rhetoric. Who knew, right? So analyzing rhetorical choices means that you need to actually mention rhetorical strategies, devices, those choices that the author made. So going back to the things that we've learned throughout the year, from those index cards of 100 different terms. No, you're not going to use 100 terms, but you should be comfortable enough with several of them that we've recognized throughout the year, where you identify it in this piece or that piece. They're going to be included in there somewhere. Find them, understand why the author chose to use that particular strategy to make the delivery of the message more effective. And that second part is equally important, but I think where a lot of you went wrong on this most recent writing example was that you focused more so on the message and not so much on the rhetorical choices. It needs to be a balance of both. I don't want you to disregard the message in lieu of the rhetorical choices. That's kind of how we started this year, when you would write only about the appeals, diction, and syntax. There you go. I know what those terms mean, therefore I get a 5? No, you do not. You need to show how those and many other rhetorical strategies effectively deliver the author's message. This most recent one, a lot of you focused a lot on the message and what she was saying, not how she was saying it. If you can balance those both, you got a win. All right, next. Oh, the second point I wanted to make about the most recent essays is just punctuation and editing. Maybe this is a problem that you are now typing, and as typers you're not knowing where to put things, but a simple correction is punctuation and quotation marks. I saw several people not knowing where to put the punctuation. It goes inside the quotation marks. Simply put, in all cases, you put the punctuation inside the quotation marks. So if it's somebody's sentence, period, quotes, and then you move on to your next sentence. Got it? look at the resources that I've put into our Teams page in the class materials. You will find 2 recent additions. The first one is one or the other is a document, a Word doc. It's a front and back page. I'd want you to print that out and have it with you on test day. Now, having it with you on test day is beneficial for you to be able to glance at it very quickly, very briefly. But more importantly, study it in the next week. So the more of that information that you could ingrain and know and not have to look at a page during your testing time, then it'll become more useful with what you already know. But if you do need to glance at a particular verb, tone words, adjectives that'll describe what kind of tone the author is using, or a stronger verb here, or a transition there. So those little word lists and little tips and timing tips, it's all a great review sheet. So have that handy. I'd also say have notes handy. How are you going to annotate on test day? You know, whether you're going to write on just a blank page and kind of write down notes, or are you going to print out the prompt from the program that day and wait for your printer to actually print it, grab that paper and annotate onto it? You're going to lose a little time, but if you feel that you must, that is the way that you feel that you understand that prompt and annotate, then take the time to do it. So whichever way works for you. And I'd say, again, that's kind of a practice that you should be doing this week, in timing yourself at 45 minutes, you know, look at AP Central, open up a prompt from the past, get to that page, you open your eyes and you start reading, and what do? How much time does it take you to print that document and annotate, or can you just see it on a screen and annotate or write notes, and then you get to the writing process. So if you practice managing your timing through this week, you'll be better prepared. Okay, some of that I'm going to get to in what's coming next, which is, let's get to a PowerPoint, and I'll guide you through those slides and say a lot of advice for the exam this week. Let's transition over to there. Welcome to your AP English Lang review for your rhetorical analysis essay. We're about a week away from your essay, your exam date being May 20th. You're going to go over this final review, touching upon some of the things we learned all year long. Watch it today, think about it throughout the week, and watch it again on test day. Your exam's at 2 o'clock. You need to log in at 1:30, and before that, kind of give yourself a rundown through this video or this slideshow to give you the basics of what you need to do to succeed. First of all, to succeed is understanding what is the goal of the rhetorical analysis essay, and simply put, you are identifying and analyzing the author's purpose or message. Their purpose is to deliver their message. And how do they do that? They use rhetorical strategies. What are the rhetorical choices that they use to deliver that message? So if you're able to balance both of these things into your thesis, into your essay, then you've succeeded. Answering the why, okay, the purpose, the reason why they wanted to get that message, then what is it that they're saying and why are they saying it, and how is the rhetorical choices that they've used, choices, strategies, devices, those things that we learn throughout the year on the index cards, and you know, the list of 100 of them. You don't need to know them all, but you need to know a handful of them that you're comfortable enough to identify and analyze. If you're able to do that, you succeed. And step 1, answer the prompt. Think of AP as referring to answer the frickin' prompt. Okay, so what you get in the prompt and analyzing this prompt is seeing a lot of information given to you. Well, use that information. Use a little bit of the historical background. It's going to tell you who the audience is. And for example, our most recent example of the essay that you did just a week ago, where you had Claire Booth-Luce speaking to an audience of women bankers. But was that her only audience? No, she had a broader audience of all American women. So that secondary audience, did you fully understand who she was speaking to in a larger sense, in a deeper sense? That is what you need to prove to have that complex understanding of a prompt and an essay and a speech and a piece that's written. The exigence I spoke about a while ago, and means that the reason for. Okay, what is the motivation? The author felt a need to have to deliver this message. Why? What was the exigence that caused that? Other important facts that you get, and these are important, therefore they must be included in your writing. You need to include the author's full name. Yes, the full name. Now, once you've done that in the introduction, you can continue to refer to the author only by their last name. That's fine, no Mr. or Mrs., but just the last name will suffice. The title, yes, whether it's a speech, a letter, an essay, the genre of what that piece is needs to be clearly stated in your introduction. Important dates doesn't have to be precise, but if it's in 1941 of World War II, yeah, you got to put it within the context of that's the beginning of the war. So all of those things do matter and need to be included. And finally, in the prompt, that last sentence. That last sentence is the most important. That's your assignment. That's where it's going to tell you this is what you need to do. You will analyze the rhetorical choices the author makes to present this message. A lot of times they will give you the message spelled out right there in the prompt. So now you know what. You know the what. You need to be able to decide how and how effectively that was done. So that's the analysis part of it, but you get a lot of information from the prompt. So take your time in reading the prompt, highlighting the prompt, understanding the multiple parts of it. And then, of course, the passage that follows. Next, a quick reminder here on Soapstone or Space Cat. I'm not going to go into all of this, but you have these handouts. You've seen different slides or presentations on these, and these are the guiding thoughts for any analysis that you do. When you are reading the passage, you need to have these ideas in your head. So the acronyms represent, and you need to know what they represent. One or the other, they overlap, but always thinking about who is the speaker here, what's their purpose, how are they delivering it to the audience, what's the larger context, the exigency, the subject. You know, it all comes to the tone, word choice. The diction creates a particular type of tone. If you're able to analyze that, appeals, they're all mixed in here. So if you remember these letters, they guide you through thinking about the right things as you are reading, and then again, as you are writing, are you touching upon these? Okay, introduction paragraph. When you actually start your writing, we've talked about the rhetorical situation. We started the year with this rhetorical triangle, and again, it comes to that context. A lot of what you got from the prompt goes into your introduction, but you need to be able to understand the broader context and the importance of why this piece fit into a connection between this speaker, this audience on this subject within this point in time. If you're able to balance all that, you've covered the rhetorical situation. That should be probably the first 2 sentences of your essay, okay, the broader context. Then, as soon as you can, whether sentence number 2 or 3, by sentence 3, you should definitely be talking about this particular writer in this particular speech on this day, or this letter that was written. Okay, you don't need to give us so much on background on a history lesson. Get to the exact piece that you are analyzing. By the 3rd sentence of your essay, you need to be on focus. Stating that author clearly, the full name, again, the title, the genre of what it is, whether it's a speech or an essay or a letter or inaugural address. Any of those things are relevant facts. Include them. And then finally, you need to have that thesis statement. One big point there. Get that point. Let's talk about thesis statements here. And in a broader sense, I want to start with something does something because reasons. Simply put, that's what a thesis is, basically. You should have learned that through elementary school in your FSA essays or capstone and doing a research paper. You're writing about something and you give reasons. 1, 2, 3, they form your body paragraphs. You should have understood that concept for years now. For the particular rhetorical analysis essay, it's still roughly the same format as you see here, but think of it as an author using or employing, or whatever strong verb you choose there, rhetorical strategies. Specify the actual strategies. So these were the used this, this, and this. 2, and you must state that purpose. Okay, not just to deliver the message to the audience. You don't say the word message. You actually explain what was their purpose and what they were trying to get across to the audience. If you're able to do that, then you've written a good thesis. Here are 2 examples. Now, this first example is okay. It's not great. I don't love it. But it got a point. This was from the Gandhi essay written by students just last year, 2019. AP Lang essay, rhetorical analysis was this prompt here that was on the previous slide. And this was an example that did earn the point, and the thesis came in the conclusion. I mean, they may have attempted a thesis in the introduction, it just didn't look very good, and this was their better statement. I think this is where they saved their point. Here they are with talking about ethos and reasoning. Those could be their rhetorical strategies, and no threat to them. He describes how it is affecting India. So it's vaguely talking about the message and it's touching upon rhetorical strategies. It got the point. I think you could definitely do better than this, and you will definitely get that point. Now, a great thesis, looking for that 5 or that perfect 6. You're hoping to write something more like this, where it touches upon tone, but it doesn't just say that the author uses tone. No, authors don't use tone. They have a particular, you need to describe with an adjective. And here a conciliatory yet forceful tone. Places blame, that's something that he does. Okay, so attacking. Repeats, that's a strategy. So you have strategies here of tone, and that aggressive tone, forceful, and repeating, using repetition to do what? The message, march in order to convince the British to reverse their policies before he acts. That is the purpose, that is the message. Together, both, that's a great thesis. You do that and you are rocking. And that'll guide you through the rest of your essay, which takes you to the rest of the essay, being the body paragraphs should be clear line of reasoning, building evidence to support your claims. So we've talked about line of reasoning, and when you see it in the rubric, when you're scoring somebody else's or thinking about how to score your own, when it says that it needs to have clear line of reasoning, well, it means, did you make a claim? The author uses this strategy, and then give evidence, give examples from the text, and then explain how that example effectively brought forth that message, or how that example created a certain reaction, an effective reaction in the audience. By doing that explanation, that reasoning, that covers the steps of a line of reasoning. So whether you learned this through science or capstone as CER, or in English as evidence and elaboration, or the commentary, it all means the same thing. You guys know this. This is what you've been doing in essays for years. If you're able to do it successfully. And successfully, what I'm looking for is at least 2, ideally 3. Okay, so there's a rule of 3 that you want 3 examples per paragraph, 3 body paragraphs per essay. That would be ideal. The reality is, within a timed 45-minute write, you might not be able to get 3, 3, and 3. So whether it's 2 body paragraphs and you make them good solid body paragraphs, or you have 3 paragraphs and you have 2 examples each, that would be great. So I think that would be good enough to get you a solid line of reasoning, not just once, not just one example, but at least 2 examples within paragraphs, at least 2 body paragraphs, ideally 3. Finally, click on this video. This whole presentation is in Teams in the files class materials. You'll find it in there, so that's where you're going to go to review. You don't need to keep watching me talk about this, but you can go on there to guide you through these bullet points, and clicking the video will give you more explanation, not only about line of reasoning, but it's a good video to give you a recap of all of this. I don't know, maybe I gave you this one as one of the video lessons earlier in the year. Serena will call me out if I did, but you know, it's good and relevant information right now as review. Alright, so you had an intro, you had thesis, you had strong body paragraphs, and conclusion. I don't need to say much about conclusion, I'll mention it here, but really at that point the more important aspect is manage your time. If you've done good introduction, you understood it by reading the prompt, and you've written solid body paragraphs, if your time runs out now, you're good. Okay, wrap it up with 1 sentence. That conclusion could be 1 sentence to maybe 3 sentences is really all you need for a conclusion there. So as long as you're restating your thesis, you'll have wrapped that up. But in a larger sense, let's talk about time management, starting not at 2 p.m. on May 20th, but starting right now. If you're still a week away from this exam, there are many things you need to be doing. You need to go onto College Board. You need to make sure that you have the right materials. You need to make sure that your computer is working. Did you do the test demo, the exam demo? I've shown you that. Look at last week's Zoom recording, and I guided you through that. But you need to make sure that all the tech stuff is going to work out for you. And when it comes data to write, all you're focused on is writing and not the platform. Making sure that you log in at 1:30, not at 2 o'clock. Don't think of your exam as being at 2 o'clock. You need to start your entering of information, from your name to your test ticket to whether you accept this policy or that, or send the scores to which colleges or so on. So it takes a while to fill out all of that. It's more so than they show on the demo site. So make sure you give yourself a good 30 minutes, and that way you are relieved and just patiently, anxiously waiting for 2 o'clock to come. All right, within the testing time, you have estimates here of 8 to 10 minutes to go over that prompted passage. Everything else being about 7 minutes. Going over the passage and analyzing that prompt and planning for a minute or 2 does take a little bit longer than the writing per paragraph. So 8 to 10 minutes before you get started. Now, once you get started, you need to write fast. So 4 times 7 is 28. That's almost 30 minutes right there for 4 paragraphs. An intro and 3 body paragraphs would be done within this time. So if you stick to that timing, a couple more minutes to write that conclusion, which is your shorter paragraph, and you're just over 30, that still allows you 1 or 2 more minutes to review. Now, don't get carried away with editing. They understand this is a draft. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't want to be careless, find any careless mistakes, but you do not have the time to be meticulous and reread and edit your whole essay to perfection, because you're going to run over that 45 minutes and the upload time. So when it'll be on the clock on the testing platform, when you see that it goes to you are now within those 5 minutes to submit, don't wait till the last minute or 2. Give yourself at least 3, 4, 5 minutes to, whether you are copying and pasting off of a Word doc, Word or Docs or whatever program you're using. Are you copy and pasting, or are you saving the file? Either case, I would say if you could set up autosave and have it either on OneDrive or your Google Drive or wherever it is that you can automatically save your writing throughout the writing process so that you don't have a catastrophe and lose it. Save that file. If you're able to upload the file, wonderful, or if you more comfortably want to copy and paste it in there after you've written it in that processor. I think this is one of the benefits of having this year and being able to use a word processor. Then use it for the grammar check, for the spelling check. Look, right here, it's telling me that my AP is not a word. Maybe I should check that out. Well, in this case, it's correct. It's exactly as I want it, and you may decide that. But if you have those indicators, give it a little extra thought. All right, and you uploaded on time, and you didn't panic. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Okay, finally, my last note is motivation here. You got this, people. Seriously, and I mean this honestly, you are all good enough to pass this. You are good enough English students. You are smart enough to understand what an author's doing. You are good enough writers to put down words and sentences in a coherent fashion to be able to get a passing score. So do this. Do what I've just covered throughout here. You mention a couple of rhetorical strategies, you tie them to the author's message, and you explain it with examples. Boom, you got this. All right, don't expect your essay to be absolutely perfect, but write a complete essay, manage your time well, and if you get it in time, you will pass this year. Okay, make sure that you're prepared with all the tech stuff. And finally, I will say this again. I mean, this is not my last talking to you just because it's before the test. So after the test, we'll have more Zooms and more talks. But man, I am proud of you guys. I really think that you're ready for this. I really think we had a great year before things happened here, and our year has entailed much more than just a rhetorical analysis essay. From the books you read to presentations to cool authors that we read along the way. I'm proud of what you guys did for 3 quarters and the effort that you've put independently from home. I mean, it's been a great year despite the unconventional year that it's been. So, have a mint. Get it? Encouragement. All right, I love you guys. You're gonna do great. Prep yourself in this coming week and in that day on Wednesday of next week, if you're watching this at the appropriate time. You're gonna do great. All right, love you guys. Peace.